Hey everybody, welcome to the virtual seminar brought to you by the Pride Outdoor Network on Roku. And tonight we're going to be talking jigs and rigs. We're going to cover some really cool stuff. Now, for those of you that are going to be watching us on Facebook, please feel free to go ahead and share. There's going to be some great information, some new products here tonight, and we're going to show you how to rig some stuff. We're going to go over jigs tonight. We're also going to go over Neko and wacky rigging, as well as going over the Tokyo rig. So we got a lot of cool stuff to go over tonight to explain to you in detail, plus show you some new products. Glad you're here. All right, let's talk jigs. Now, I throw mostly two different sizes, 3/8 and 1/2 ounce. Yes, occasionally I'll throw a quarter. Yes, occasionally I'll throw a 3/4 or an ounce jig. More often than not, 3/8 and 1/2. I throw two types. I throw a jig that I'm actually helping design with Lure Parts Online right now for a skipping jig. We'll go over that in a minute. And then I throw a heavy cover jig. Those are the two types that I throw most of the time. Most colors in most cases, although they vary depending on lakes and body of waters that I'm on, most of the time it's going to be a combination of black, blue, and green pumpkin. Those work everywhere across the country. Doesn't matter where you go. Yes, I do have some other ones, and I will show you 4 of my new favorite skirt colors. You can go to lurepartsonline.com and look for those. These are probably and there's going to be more skirts coming, but these are some incredible colors. This one right here is called Fresh Roadkill. There's obviously your black and blue. This one called Purple Bruise or Purple Blues, I think it is. This is going to be my perfect black and blue skirt right here. And then this one is Candy Watermelon. There's at least 2 or 3 different types of colors in the skirt. The video's not going to do them justice when you see them. And I've put some of these in the water already. I actually did it in my bathtub, in my sink, to see what they look like. They're fantastic. And a lot of my jigs are going to be changed over to that. So, and they, like I said, they just came out with them. You can go there and check them out now. Later, we're going to show you a code. So make sure you watch to the end of the show where you can get 10% off for Lure Parts as well. So let's show you how I set up my basic jig if I was just going to skip it. Because my skipping jigs are set up a little differently. I don't want a real long skirt. I don't want a lot of appendages hanging off the bait. So here's what I do. Say we'll take this 3/8 ounce one right here. I want the skirt to be a little shorter, okay? I want hardly anything coming in contact with the water besides that flat head. We designed that flat head just like on the same basis of skipping a rock, so it can skip across the water nice and easily. So we got that. Then we're going to trim off the skirt. I'm going to take the scissors. I'm going to trim it about 1/8 of an inch below the hook. Once that bait hits the bottom, those strands are going to stand out. Okay? If you've ever seen a crawdad in the water when it's not moving, something on that crawdad always is, and it's his tentacles. That is the principle that I base this on. It's now when that jig hits the water, all those strands are going to stand out. They'll always be moving. Look a little bit more realistic, at least in my mind. Okay? So, that's that. On a 3/8 ounce jig, most of the time, I use 2 trailers. On a 3/8, I use a little 3.5 inch Shields finesse craw. Love this thing. Great little craw, great little action to it. Also good on the back of a swim jig, just so you know. But that's a great little craw right there. On a 1/2 ounce version, I use the big 4-inch swimming craw. That's what I put on the back. Now, to make this even simpler for you, if I want the 3/8 jig to fall slower, I put the big swimming craw on the back of it. That'll make it fall slower. In the summertime, when I'm going for more of a reaction bite, I want that jig to fall faster. I'll take that 1/2 ounce and I'll put that little swimming craw on the back of that. Very few colors, very few combinations. I can do several different things with it. And that is how I set up a jig, just like that. That skipping jig is going to be great because, again, you're going to be able to get farther back underneath the dock with a jig that's designed to do that. Again, it's based on that flat rock principle. In other words, you take that flat stone or flat rock and you skip it across the water. You're going to be able to do the same thing with this jig. So those are basic, simple setups. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you my heavy cover and skipping jigs. This is tackle box from my boat. That's it. Green pumpkin, black and blue, and some white, and a couple of those different sizes. That's it. There's tons of colors out there. I can get whatever I want to build whatever I want. I'll probably experiment with some other colors from here and there, but if I just want to catch fish anywhere across the country, I know I can rely on black and blue and green pumpkin. Later this year in the show, we're going to actually show you, get more in depth about skipping, about pitching. We'll go into rods and reels and everything. But for today, I just wanted to show you how I set up my jigs. The #1 terminal tackle sold last year was a Vmc Tokyo Rig. You probably see it a little bit easier that way. Interesting design and interesting actually what this technique can do, and I love it. I've caught a lot of big fish on it in the last couple years, and it's really starting to come around where more people know about it. However, I still get some emails from time to time. Can you do something explaining a little bit more about the Tokyo Rig? Okay, the Tokyo Rig will work with any plastic that you decide to use. Right now, VMC has more sizes from finesse Tokyo rigs all the way up to the big heavy Tokyo rigs and 4s and 4.0s and 5.0s. This is a 4.0, and this is a size that I use the most for largemouth. Matter of fact, I've actually caught some smallmouth on this size too on this rig that I'm going to show you here in a second. But let's just show you how to set it up. So the Tokyo Rig consists of a split ring, a swivel, an arm that sticks down, and the hook style that you decide to use. The arm here is meant to put a weight on of your choice. Now VMC has several weights that you can choose from. You can use any weight you want in there, but they have the tungsten cylinder weight, which I use most of the time. They also have a rugby type weight, which you've seen on a VMC rugby jig, or you can use just a standard tungsten weight. My favorite when I'm fishing around boat docks or laydowns or even grass, I really like the cylinder weight. I throw 3/8 to 1/2 ounce most of the time. Okay, so let's just show you how I'm going to rig this, and then we'll talk about the advantages of Tokyo Rig and things like that. So all you need to do is slide that weight right on there like that. Then all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to put a slight bend in that right there, and my weight just sits right there. That's it. Okay, for those of you guys who like to punch or punch vegetation, 1/2, 3/4 ounce like this, punching right through the mats. We're going to rig this up now with the plastic, but I'm going to show you a little trick. The bait that I throw on the Tokyo Rig the most is a tube craw. Okay, I throw that. That is my favorite big fish bait of all time. I love this bait. I've caught both largemouth and smallmouth on it. Just a fantastic bait. It's hard on the top here, hollow in the body, and then obviously you've got the tentacles and the craw and the claws underneath. So how would I rig this? First of all, I'm going to show you a little trick. I think we've done this before, and I don't remember who showed this to me, or I would give them credit, but this really works, and it helps your plastics last longer. I'm going to take the VMC Wacky tool, which has got all the O-rings on here. I am going to put the tube inside to the first ring on the Wacky tool. Then I am going to put an O-ring over it so that now the O-ring is just underneath the hard part of that tube. Okay? Now, I am going to take the hook and I am going to stick the point down just past that ring. Exit it out underneath. Now I'm going to slide this up on the offset, like so. Then I'm going to rig it here, so it's straight. Now, why did I put that O-ring on there? Guys, now when you go to set the hook on here, it's not going to pull the plastic down on the hook. That O-ring will hold that bait up there on that offset of that hook incredibly well. You will not go through nowhere near the baits on this once you put that little O-ring on there. Now, what I'm going to do, also what I need to show you here. Let's pull this out a little bit. There we go. Now it's up on there like so. I want that split ring standing off or exposed there, so now this bait can move around any way it wants. So the advantages of the Tokyo Rig. First of all, no matter how heavy a weight that you put on there, when you set the hook, unlike a Texas rig or when you're punching with a heavy weight, the weight comes through the fish's mouth first. If it's a big enough weight, it can have a tendency to open up the fish's mouth enough and it pulls the hook right out after it. With the Tokyo Rig, the first thing that's going to come in contact with the fish's mouth is the hook. Okay? The weight is working independently from that hook. When you set the hook, that hook is going to strike first. So now the weight has no bearing on when you set the hook. Also, when you pitch the bait in there, as that weight hits the water, it literally whips the bait up and pulls it straight down. It's a completely different fall. Once that bait's on the bottom, you can literally work the bait just off the bottom. I was talking with a guy the other day about how when he's fishing smallmouth in the wintertime, sometimes they can get right down belly against the mud. You need a bait that's just going to stay barely off the bottom. There's nothing better than the Tokyo Rig. It's basically like a very, very small power drop shot is what that is. Okay? Also, every time you hop that bait, it literally just whips that bait up instead of just up, down, which would be a Texas rig. This gives the bait more action. This excels on weed lines. It excels on the outside of docks. It excels fishing through cover. I really like fishing this through cover with that cylinder weight because it doesn't hang up and you can get down through the tightest little places. I really like that cylinder weight for that. Also, I've done this. Take a little float, a little plastic float, and I'll put it inside the tube. It'll float the tube up. You've got a ton of action on this thing. You can put a rattle inside there if you want. There's a bunch of different ways that you can do just with that tube craw. And if you want to see here, this is actually my tube craw box. Nothing too difficult with colors. I've got just watermelon red, green pumpkin, black neon, and a color called hematoma. But that is about it. Matter of fact, this one right here is called tilapia, which is a green pumpkin. Those are the 4 colors that I use all the time. Okay, that's it. Now, let's go over the weight a little bit on here. When I'm fishing some of that slate rock, when you get up into Minnesota on some places, especially Ontario, and I'm fishing smallmouth, some of that big rock, I actually like throwing that rugby style weight on there, okay? And it comes in a bunch of different sizes. Again, I like quarter, I like 3/8, I like half ounce, but I can rig that on that Tokyo rig right now, and that's when I like to reel it slow, bumping that sinker across the bottom. It comes really good through rock. You can make a lot of noise with that tungsten sinker down there as that slides up and down that shank, a lot bouncing through those rocks. I really like that when I'm fishing rock piles or big rock or even that slate rock. You can really bounce that thing down there good. Grass, sometimes I will go, if you guys want to do this, I've seen guys do this, is you put 2 of the bullet sinkers back to back with a bead in the middle. You can be as simple, or you can really get complicated with it if you want and do a bunch of different things. Again, my #1 way to do it is with that tungsten cylinder weight. Most of the time I'm throwing it on 17-pound Suffix Invisalign or advanced fluorocarbon. I like that heavier line, 17 to 20-pound test. I like the sinking line on Jig and Tokyo Rig applications like that. Usually 7.3, medium, heavy, fast rod with a higher gear ratio reel. Anything from 7.3 to 1 up. I like a faster gear ratio to engage the reel quicker, pick up more line, and set the hook. But that is basically my setup for the Tokyo Rig. The hook I use the most is the heavy duty wide gap. That's the one right there. It's a 4.0. Again, they make it in a ton of different sizes for a ton of different applications, but that is the Tokyo Rig. If you have not tried it, please give it a try this year. I guarantee you will be impressed with the results. You're really going to be impressed with the hooking percentage. All right, for the last part of this virtual seminar, I want to introduce you to one of the coolest products I've seen in the last couple years, and this came out last year, and this is from VMC, and it's called the Crossover Pliers. Kind of unique looking system right there. What that does, so for those of you guys who like to throw the Neko rig or like to throw a wacky rig, one of the biggest problems we've always had is a plastic sliding off or getting thrown off, especially on a wacky worm. What VMC did is they came out with these crossover pliers. Now what these pliers do is they help to expand a little ring around the lure, whatever size you're throwing, and you can actually take that ring and you can hook it a couple ways. It can be hooked to Neko rig and then be hooked to wacky rig. So let me show you exactly how to do that. Now first of all, the O-rings that they have on here come in several different sizes. And I know it's hard to see this, but you'll see a little bump right here on the top of that, and that's where the hook can go in. Now the hook can go in this way, the hook can also go in this way, depending on what you want to do. In other words, if I was going to throw a weighted wacky hook, I could just stick the hook right through that bait. Now the hook is totally away from the plastic, yet it secures the plastic. Why does this make a difference? Couple reasons. One, it's going to keep you from the bait being thrown off on even a small fish. It's going to hold that bait secure in place. Also, it's going to give you a better chance, a much better chance, of the hook not swinging back around and embedding back in the plastic. This will actually hold the hook away from the body of the worm, yet snug against it. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but it's happened to me enough times where when I didn't have that, you'd set the hook and the plastic would roll over the top of the hook and you'd lose the fish for that. The chances of that are extremely slim right now because of this O-ring design. So how do you put it on? Okay, so they have rings in 5, 6, 7, and 8 millimeter sizes. Okay, now the crossover pliers actually come with little compartments that flip open on either side of the handle. So what you can do then is you can put rings, different sizes, in each side. I think that is an absolutely fantastic idea. Now, for the smaller baits, like if I'm throwing a small finesse stick right here, I'll use maybe the 6 millimeter size. Now, when I throw the big wacky worm right here, just a Shields trick worm right here, I am going to put the bigger ring on. So let's show you how easy this is to do this. So I'm going to open up the compartment, and I'm going to take one of the rings out of there. Close the compartment back up. Now all I'm going to do is slip that ring over those pliers. When you press them together, it opens that ring up. When I do that, I now put my plastic through there and then simply pull it through to my desired area. Let the pliers close, pull it off, and there you go. Now your O-ring is completely on the bait. Now, if I want to hook it wacky style, I can easily take it with the small little holes right there, stick it right through there. There you go. That, folks, is an absolutely, let me show this to you close up, that is a fantastic way to rig that, because now the hook is securely in place and it won't embed back in the plastic. Now if I'm going to do a Neko style setup, then what I can do is I can take whatever hook I'm going to use right here. I'll use a Neko hook, but this is just a little hook right here that we can use. We'll stick it through this way, stick it right through there. There you go. I would put my weight down here at the bottom, and now my hook is secure but still away from the bait. Now my hooking percentage is going to be a lot better and I'm not going to tear up my worm as much. What I really like these rings for is when I'm taking a wacky and skipping it up underneath something, either a Neko rig and skipping it up underneath something. These rings, depending on what size you use, will hold that bait securely, or hold your hook securely in place and stay on your plastic longer. If you like to throw a wacky or a Neko rig, in my opinion, this was long overdue. Okay, the Vmc Crossover Pliers is a very easy thing to keep in your tackle box. You can store rings in either side. It's very durable, and this thing saves a lot of time and a lot of hassle. Actually saves you money because you're going to have a lot less worms flying off. This way it's going to hold them a lot more secure, and it's also going to give you a better hooking percentage. So I hope you enjoyed this virtual seminar covering jigs and rigs today. We're obviously going to be having more stuff coming up in the future. If you want to get some of the jigs and some of that great skirt material I talked to you about, and even some or all that, you can go to Lure Parts Online. If you put in the code HOOK, & sign HUNT, Hook and Hunt 10, You'll get a discount from there. Any of the plastics that I talked about today, you can easily find at your local Shields. Great store for everything. They also carry a ton of Rapala, ton of VMC, big selection of all our favorite brands you can easily find right there at Shields. So make sure you check all that stuff out. Also, for any of the Rapala baits, if you want to check out a full selection of Rapala, go to Rapala.com. That's where you can see a lot of the baits, a lot of the stuff we talked about, Rapala VMC, all that, all under the Normark umbrella. Go to Rapala.com and you can find out more there. So hope you guys enjoyed this virtual seminar brought to you by Roku, Pride Outdoor Network, and Hook and Hunt TV. God bless you. I'm Jim Crowley. We'll see you soon.